What if I told you there are 6 different levels of income in retirement, and most Singaporeans don't even know which one they're headed toward? That's a strange thing to say, right? Because most people think retirement income is just one thing. You save, you retire, you live off what you saved. Simple. But it's not that simple, not even close. Think about your uncle who retired at 62 and is now doing Grab deliveries just to top up his CPF life payout. Now think about that other uncle, the one who retired at 55, still drinks his kopi at the same coffee shop every morning, but never seems worried about money. Same country, same CPF system, same HDB estate, maybe even the same block, but completely different retirements. Why? Because they're standing on different levels. And today, we're going to walk through all 6 of them so you know exactly where you are right now, and more importantly, where you're headed. Let's start at the bottom. Level 1 is what I call dependent income. This is when a retiree has little to no income of their own. No CPF buffer left, no savings. They're relying on their children or on government assistance schemes just to get through the month. It's not a comfortable place to be, and honestly, it's more common in Singapore than people like to admit. Rising cost of living has a way of quietly pushing people here, even people who worked hard their entire lives, even people who never imagined they'd end up depending on someone else at 70 years old. Level 2 is survival income. This is CPF life and basically nothing else. Enough to cover hawker center meals, utilities, maybe transport. But there's no buffer. One hospital visit, one unexpected repair, and the whole month is in trouble. A lot of Singaporeans assume CPF life alone will be enough. Enough for what, exactly? Enough to survive, yes. Enough to actually live? That's a different question entirely. Level 3 is stable income. Now we're getting somewhere. This is CPF life plus some personal savings, maybe a small fixed deposit, maybe some Singapore savings bonds. It's not exciting, but it's steady. The retiree isn't panicking about every price increase at the supermarket. They can still afford the occasional taxi instead of squeezing onto the MRT during rush hour. This is where a large chunk of Singaporeans land. Not poor, not wealthy, just stable. Okay? But here's the thing. Stable isn't the same as comfortable, and a lot of people confuse the two. Level 4 is comfortable income. This is where CPF life is joined by actual investment income, dividends, maybe a bit of rental if they downsized from a bigger flat to a smaller one and invested the difference. At this level, retirement starts to feel less like survival and more like life. Travel becomes possible again, grandchildren get proper birthday presents, not just red packets. There's breathing room. There's the option to say yes to things instead of calculating everything down to the last dollar. Now here's where most people completely misunderstand retirement planning. They think the goal is to reach level 4 and stop. Comfortable is good enough, right? But comfortable retirees are still vulnerable to one thing: inflation. 20 years of rising prices can quietly erode a comfortable income back down to merely stable without the retiree even noticing it happening. The hawker meal that cost $4 a decade ago costs $6 today. The same pattern repeats across everything: groceries, healthcare, transport. That's the part nobody talks about. Which brings us to level 5, growth income. At this level, the retiree isn't just living off a fixed pool of money. Their income sources are still growing, even in retirement. REITs paying quarterly distributions, a diversified portfolio still compounding in the background, maybe a small side income from something they're passionate about: consulting, teaching, tutoring, a small business run from home. The key difference here isn't the amount of money, it's the direction. Levels 1 through 4 are usually static or slowly shrinking. Level 5 is still moving forward year after year, even without active effort. And then there's level 6, freedom income. This is the level where income doesn't just cover expenses, it exceeds them consistently without the retiree needing to touch the principal at all. Multiple income streams, dividends, interest, maybe rental, maybe a business that runs without them being there every day. At this level, money stops being a source of stress entirely. It becomes a tool, Nothing more, nothing less. Now, here's the question you're probably asking yourself. Which level am I actually headed toward? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most working Singaporeans, without realizing it, are on a path towards level 2 or 3. Not because they're bad with money, not because they're lazy, but because CPF alone, for most income levels, was never designed to fund a comfortable retirement on its own. It was designed as a foundation, a floor, not a ceiling. It keeps you from falling. It was never meant to lift you up. The people who reach level 4, 5, or 6 almost always have one thing in common. They started building outside of CPF intentionally years before retirement. Not massive amounts, just consistent amounts. A portion of salary redirected into long-term investments month after year, while everyone else was spending theirs on the newest phone or another overseas trip or upgrading the car a little earlier than they needed to. That's really the whole secret. There isn't some hidden formula. There's no get-rich scheme buried in this video. It's just this. The earlier you start separating spending money from future income, the higher your level becomes by the time you actually retire. Let's put real numbers to this quickly. Someone investing just $300 a month starting at age 30, growing at a modest long-term average return, could realistically build a six-figure portfolio by retirement age. Not because $300 a month is a huge amount. It's not. Most people spend more than that on food delivery and subscriptions without thinking twice, but because time does most of the heavy lifting. Someone starting the same habit at age 50 will need to invest almost triple that amount every single month just to end up in a similar place. Same goal, wildly different effort, purely because of when they started. And this is where it gets interesting. The difference between level 3 and level 5 over a 30-year working life is often not a difference in income. Two people earning the exact same salary can retire at completely different levels, purely based on habits. One treats investing as optional, something to think about later when there's more money. The other treats it as fixed, automatic, non-negotiable, the same way rent or CPF contributions are non-negotiable. So here's the real question underneath all of this. Not how much do I have right now, but which direction am I actually moving in? Because your level isn't fixed, it's not a label you're stuck with. A level 2 retiree who starts adjusting their habits at 45 can absolutely climb to level 4 by 65. A level 4 retiree who ignores inflation and stops growing their income can quietly slide backwards without noticing until it's too late to easily fix. Movement matters more than the current number. That uncle at the coffee shop, calm and unworried, he didn't get lucky. Somewhere along the way, he made a decision, probably a small one, probably years ago, to build something beyond CPF. And that one decision, repeated quietly for decades, compounded into an entirely different retirement. So, where do you think you're standing right now? And more importantly, which direction are you actually moving in? Because the level you retire at isn't decided the year you stop working. It's decided by the choices you're making right now, today, while you still have time on your side.